What's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again as usual. Thanks for dropping by for yet another chess video. Thank you for taking the time to watch my previous Chessnut move video. I've received a lot of positive and great reception. I felt like there was a lot of interest in the board itself. And although at the time I felt like the video provided enough details for the actual product, at the same time I couldn't be able to include everything, and after reading your all's comments I felt like there was a lot of people with some very interesting and important questions, so I decided why not make another video for you guys, kind of addressing some things that I felt like may have been missed in the previous video, which I feel like might be important for you guys to take a look at again. I've had a lot of people ask about the voice recognition and how that works, so hopefully we're gonna test that sort of area out and kind of maybe go through a game using voice recognition and see how that works and see some of the things that I started to learn about this board and how you're supposed to use the voice recognition, and also just going through some of the things that I myself found important. So let's just go ahead and start. As far as the physical features of the board, I felt like at the time I pretty much covered everything. As far as the battery life, I've been playing this board pretty extensively, and I feel like the battery is really nice. I don't find myself having to charge it but every once in a while. I would probably say that based on my usage of this, you'd probably be able to squeeze in at least 20 games out of the board before having to need to charge it. But other physical characteristics, some people were asking about the front buttons. There's a front button M and also a button that looks like a hand holding a pawn. So the hand holding the pawn button on the front of this is supposed to get the pieces back to their original position. So if you are done with the game, or if you are done with the position and you just want the pieces to be reset, you just press that button and the pieces all go back together. The M button helps to put this board into offline mode in case you're not online and you just want to use this board specifically for offline purposes. You can do that with the M button. As this is still a prototype, I don't think these buttons work for me, at least at this time. Possibly after some further updates and upgrades, I'm sure they're going to start working. But that's what we're looking as far as those two buttons, because I know some people wanted to know what they're all about. So that's that. Another important question is somebody asked, how do you promote a queen? And I'm going to show that to you guys here in just a second. You see, the thing that's interesting about this board, well, sensitivity of the board and things that happen on the board doesn't just end with where the squares end. The side parts here are also where the pieces are being recognized. So if the pieces are sitting on the sides, they're going to be recognized. So like in this particular case, when the pieces have pushed their way out, I was playing a game here, and you want them to go back to their original position, all you have to do is go ahead and let that happen, and all the pieces basically start going back to their original position, which is really interesting. Sometimes it takes a second, that is depending on the position, but for the most part, you know, everything gets positioned where it was. So there's a couple of different ways for you to be able to play and use this board to your advantage. And I'm going to also touch base on those things here in just a second, right after this board finishes setting up. Okay, very good. So now, as you notice, once we are fully set up, I don't know what that took, like 30 seconds or something. I started an actual game against the bot, and I started, and the bot is playing with white. Okay, so let me just bring the camera closer here, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can play with this board, a couple of different ways that I found useful to play with this board. So let me just do that. Alrighty, so hopefully this angle will work for us. I'm going to be kind of behind the camera a little bit, but one of the ways that I found while testing this board out, one of the ways that I found that kind of works for me as far as playing through some of the games is I like sometimes to have this hybrid approach to playing my chess games, where maybe part of the game I'm playing on the computer, or in this case it would be an iPad, and then half of my game I might be playing on the board. As I've talked numerous times before, I feel like the perception of the chess game that you get by staring at two-dimensional figures here is going to be vastly different than the perception of the game that you get by looking at 3D pieces on a real board. But sometimes you want kind of a little bit of both. That's why there's so many people playing online games. So in this case, sometimes you want to go ahead and start by playing your game, like in this particular case. Let's say I want to start the game a little bit or get a little bit ahead, maybe just enough for me to kind of get into the middle game. Or in this case, maybe I'll just start off about this much, okay? I finally got through the beginning part, which may be kind of very similar in some situations. Now I want to continue playing the game the way that, that we are used to playing the game, well, such as this. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's say for example, now one of the things, when you are taking pieces, you do want to put them here if you want the pieces to come back later on when you're resetting the board, because if you put them outside here, then they will not get back on top of the board. But if you put them on the side here, they're still going to be good for you when it's time for reset, okay? So that's kind of neat, and I don't think I'm doing terribly great here, but the point is you can have this sort of a hybrid approach, which I found fascinating. I've played through a number of my games, and I think this is great. On that note, somebody else did ask me how do you promote a queen, and I felt like at the time I could have just commented, but instead I figured I might as well go ahead and show everybody by making this subsequent video. But this here is a screen of the analysis screen of the Chessnut program. So let's say, for example, we go ahead and try to promote a piece, for instance. I'm just gonna make the dark side promote to a queen. So we're just gonna go like this, and then we'll go like this. Not that this would really happen in real game, but just for the sake of. And then once you get to here, and I don't know if you guys can see this screen, but you guys will see what I'm talking about here in just a second. There we go. Now, our boards here are reversed, but just for the sake of, you can do a couple of things, okay? You can either, to promote to a queen, you can just do this. So if you're actually playing on a board like this, you could do it like this. You can take the two pieces and you can put the queen there. Voila. So that the board recognizes, based on the fact that each piece has its own sensor, the board recognizes that that's how we promote it. And then over here you see that we promote it to the queen. Okay, now let's say we want to go back, and then we can go back in the analysis section, and then what's going to happen is, interestingly, is the queen will go back, and then the rook will go back, and voila, so we get back. So the alternative here would be to do it on the computer, and then if you do it on the computer, it'll ask you which piece you want to promote to, which includes bishop, rook, knight, or queen. Now, if you put it to a piece that is not existent on the side of the board, nothing will happen. So let's say, for example, you put for a knight. I do believe the pieces will leave the side of the board, but they will not get replaced by another knight, just because there's no 3 knights for each side. There's only 2. I don't think we're going to run into a lot of situations where that will happen. If you did have the extra knight on the side of the board, then my best guess is it would go back to that spot. But if you're doing it on the computer and you just click for the queen, the 2 pieces will leave and the queen will come. As long as the queen or the extra queen is on the side of the board, then everything should work. Okay, now we've got this really wacky position that is never going to really happen in a real game. But in this particular case, now we do have a dark knight on the side of the board, so we're going to go ahead and try to promote to a knight. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now it did recognize a knight, so we didn't really have an issue there, and everything is good. So as long as you have that piece on the side of the board, you're not really going to have a problem. And considering that in most cases, promotion does happen 95% of the cases to a queen, and we do have the extra queen, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have a problem with this. Just like in a real chess game, if you're in the beginning of the game, or not even halfway through, and you decide to under promote, there has to be a pretty good reason for you to actually want to under promote, such as in a specific position where maybe a knight might prove to be a lot more beneficial. But most of the time when you're promoting to a knight based from personal experiences, it usually happens towards the end of the game, and you usually don't have an extra knight. If you already have 2 knights on the board, I don't really think you're going to want to promote to a 3rd knight, but that's just me. And that is something I wanted to kind of point out to you guys. The last thing that I'd like to touch base today, just because I've had so many inquiries about this particular subject, is the voice recognition feature that is available on this particular board. So we've got two different options here. I don't know if you guys can see the screen, but if you go to the preferences, there will be the online recognition and the built-in engine recognition. So in this particular case, let's go ahead and test the built-in engine recognition. I'm also going to turn on the move announcement here. E7 to E5. Okay, recognize that. Also, I do believe that we're getting some knight to C6. B8 to C6. D7 to D5. Bishop to G4. Bishop to G4 probably doesn't work. Okay, why don't we put C8 to G4. Now it works.
H2, H3.
G4 takes F3. I recognized it. Okay, very good.
D1, F3.
E5 to E4. G8 to F6. D8 to D7. A7 to A6. Queen takes bishop. See, you can't say queen takes bishop. Queen takes bishop. No, you have to say D7 takes C6. B7 takes C6. F8 to, no, actually change that. Let's do C6 to C5. What? Undo. Take back. Alright, so that previous game we botched it a little bit. Let's just try again. D7 to D5. So far, it would probably make sense for anybody that's watching this video, especially for those that are looking to improve this voice recognition, is that we probably want to maybe go on and just say, you know, knight to c6. I don't think in this case it works. So you can't just say knight to c6, or you can't really say like bishop to e5 or something like that, or e6. You can't say that. So instead you have to say the actual number. So b8 to c6. So now it recognizes that. I want to do a couple of things that hopefully, I'm not sure if it'll recognize, but I'd like to know to the extent to which. Okay, and here if I could say like pawn takes bishop, that'd be great, or pawn takes c6, c7 to c6. Bishop on b4 takes knight on c3. G8 to F6. King side castle. King to G8. King castle. King side castle. Castle king side. E8 to G8. So we need some improvements there as far as the option. D8 to F6. F6 to G6. H7 to H6. G6 takes G5. H6 takes G5. F7 takes E6. A8 to F8. There we go. Well, and there you have it, my friends. That's kind of all I really wanted to take the time to show you guys today. Hopefully you guys have found this video somewhat helpful. Maybe for those of you guys that were really looking for those answers, you were able to at least get a glimpse as far as how some of those things functions. As far as voice recognition, I do have to say that perhaps some improvements would be favorable, because just like you've seen, possibly if we can maybe shortcut. I know that Chessnut advised that when you're using voice recognition, try to be as descriptive as possible, but I'd probably say that if it's obvious, maybe saying bishop takes pawn if there's only one bishop on the board, or if the other bishop is unable to take the pawn, the board will hopefully recognize bishop takes pawn. Or, you know, if there's a situation where there's possibly a discrepancy in which piece is taking what, you'd maybe say bishop on d4 takes pawn. But in this case right now, the voice recognition feature seems to work well. I probably would say for casual games, it's probably more than enough, especially for somebody that kind of gets a hang of it. For more serious games, I probably would say maybe I would trust my fingers more to put the piece exactly where. Otherwise, if the voice recognition mishears your B something instead of a D something, and all of a sudden you lose a major piece, there goes your game. So anyways, hopefully you guys have found this video interesting. Thank you as always for taking the time to tune in. Please leave in the comments below what you guys think. Are you excited about this board? I have to say that setting up the pieces has kind of become sort of redundant for me with this board, just because it's so convenient to just press a button and, you know, 40 seconds later all the pieces are ready, set, go. I know we've been setting pieces since, you know, for thousands of years now, but this kind of really changes things for me, and I think it's for the better. Anyways, as always, thank you for taking the time, and I'll see you guys in the next video, okay? Bye-bye.